The air was thick with the kind of heat that clings to your skin, the kind that makes you forget where you end and the world begins. I stood in my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator a faint comfort against the stillness of the morning my fingers gripped, the knife as it sliced through a peach juice pooling on the cutting board, sweet and sticky. I was 34, married for 7 years to a man who weighs everything you'd want on paper stick, the kind. Predictable, but predictable can hollow you out, leave you staring at your reflection, wondering when you stop at feeling alive. That's where I was caught, in the quiet ache of a life I'd chosen but no longer recognized. When everything changed. My name is Lauren Harper, and I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to unravel like this. I used to hear stories of forbidden desires and scoff, certain I was above it all, but life has a way of creeping up on you, slipping through the cracks of your resolve, until you're standing in a moment you can't undo. My husband David was a good man, thecond, who paid bills on time and never forgot to mow the lawn. But he didn't seem not the way I needed. He didn't notice the new dress I wore last month, or the way I'd linger by the window at night searching for something I couldn't name. I told myself it was enough until Ethan came back. Ethan was David's son from his first marriage, 22, now a college senior. Had returned to our suburban Virginia home for the summer when I married David. Ethan was a lanky 15-year-old, all elbows and silences. A kid who kept to himself. We never clashed, but we never connected either, just polite nods and small talk over dinner. I figured time would bridge the gap. No, standing in my kitchen that sweltering June morning, I realized time had done more than that. Ethan wasn't a kid anymore. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a quiet confidence that filled the room. His dark hair fell just above high size, and his voice, once cracking and uncertain, now carried a depth that made me chest tightened when he spoke. It's innocently enough, David had left for work, his briefcase swinging as heckest my cheek, and promised to be home late. I was in a loose tank top and cotton shorts, the kind I wore when the house was mine alone. I hadn't thought twice about it, hadn't considered how thin fabric hugged my curves, or how morning light might catch me just so. Ethan shuffled in, groggy, holding a cordless drill. Morning, he mumbled, drubbing sleep from his eyes. Going to fix that loose shelf in the guest bathroom. Is mild grateful for the distraction. Thanks, Ethan, been meaning to get to that. He nodded, leaning against the counter end. We chatted about nothing really, through either his classes, the way Benny Borehood felt smaller every year. Button the air shifted. I felt it before I saw it, a weight in the silence, like Thorum was holding its breath. I glanced at the microwave door, its dark surface reflecting him behind me, his eyes weren't on my face. They were lower, lingering on the outline of my body, apologetic and steady. My pulse, a jolt of something I hadn't felt in years, fear maybe, or curiosity, or bath. I should have moved, covered myself, flaunted off, but I didn't. I stood there, slicing the peach, letting the moment stretch. The drill slipped from his hand, clattering against the tile, and we both jumped. Sorry, he stammered, cheeks flushing as he bent to pick it up. Slipped. No worries, I said, my voice too calm to control. He muttered something about needing a screwdriver and left the kitchen. His footsteps quickened, uneven. I stood alone, the peach half forget in my hand, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. It wasn't just the awkwardness of the moment, it was how it woke something in I am, something raw and reckless, like a match struck in a room full of gasoline. Upstairs, I locked my bedroom door and lay on the bed, still in that damn tank top. My hands traced the curve of Miss Mac. Not because I meant to butt back, 'cause I needed to feel something real. Ethan's gaze had burned into me. Not Thicklam's a stare of a college kid, but the look of a man who wanted something he knew he shouldn't, and God helped me, I liked it. I liked the way it made me feel seen, desired, alive. I told myself it was a fluke, a fleeting moment I'd bury Bidner, but the truth was I didn't want to bury it, I wanted to chase it. That night dinner was a quiet affair. David rumbled about a new project at work, oblivious to the tension simmering across the table. Ethan barely spoke, high size fixed on his plate, but I felt him when I asked him to pass the salt. Our fingers brushed, and the air crackled. High size met mine for a split second, and it was like he'd said 1,000 things without opening his mouth. After dinner, he washed dishes alone, the clink of plates grounding me. Ethan lingered in theater way, not speaking, just watching. I didn't turn around, but I could feel his presence, heavy and warm, like a storm waiting to break. Neither of us said a word, but the silence was loud enough. The next morning, I was careful. I dressed in a t-shirt and jeans before heading downstairs, determined to keep things normal, but normal was a lie, and I knew it. David was gone all day, some client meeting that would stretch into the evening. The heat was unbearable, the kind that made your skin itch for relief. He suggested to Ethan that we use the pool. Casual idea, I told myself. Meat nothing. He hesitated, then nodded, and I felt a thrill I couldn't name. One chose Miss Swimsuit, deliberately a teal bikini. That thugged my hips and dipped low in thefront. I told myself it was just for me to feel good in my own skin, but I knew better. When I stepped outside, Ethan was already in the pool, his arms stretched along the edge, water glinting off his shoulders. His eyes followed me as I walked past, subtle but unmistakable. He felt powerful, wanted, and it weighs. We talked easily at first about his roommates, his music taste, the boredom of summer in the suburbs. He lowed more than usual, and I caught myself smiling, really smiling for the first time in weeks. When he offered Tybrab drinks, I nodded, and he 2 cans of seltzer. His fingers lingered on mine as he handed me one, and me pulse spiked. We weren't pretending anymore. In the shallow end, his foot brushed mine under the water, and I didn't move away. I let it stay, let the contact linger, let the heat build. Need sunscreen? He asked later, his voice casual but his eyes anything but. I nodded before I could think better of. Ith moved behind me, his hands slow and deliberate as he rubbed lotion into misholders, then lower, tracing the curve of my spine. His touch was careful, respectful, but it was more than that. It was intimate, like he was memorizing me. I closed my eyes, my breath shallow, my skinalive under his hands. When he finished, didn't step away, and I didn't want them to later. As I stepped out of the pool, I tripped on the concrete edge, a clumsy stumble that could have sent mess crawling. Ethan caught me, one arm around my waist, the other gripping my wrist. His hold was strong, his body close and forearm mint. We were frozen there. His eyes locked on mine. I could smell him, chlorine and faint cologne, a scent that made my head spin. He steadied men, then let go, turning away quickly. But moment lingered, heavy and undeniable inside. I locked myself in the bathroom, towel wrapped tight, staring at my reflection. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes bright with something I didn't want to name. "What are you doing, Lauren?" He whispered, but the answer was already there, pulsing in my veins. This wasn't a game, this was dangerous, and I was rooted toward it. By dinner, I'd convinced myself to let it go. I texted David, asked if he wanted leftovers, savagery to anchor myself in routine. Bootathon. Walked into the kitchen, shirtles, hair damp from the pool, and asked if he needed help with the vegetables. I should have said no. Instead, I handed him Acnif. We moved around each other like we'd done it forever, but it was different now. His hand grazed my back, ash past his eyes, flicked to my lips mid-sentence. I caught him staring, and hadn't looked away. The air was thick with the very thing we weren't saying. After dinner, he stayed while I washed his hands, leaning against the counter, his presencia quiet challenge. "It's quiet tonight," I said, desperate to feel the silence. "It's not quiet," he replied, his voice low. "I can hear your heartbeat." I froze. My hands still in the soapy water. He stepped closer, not touching. Just close enough for me to feel the heat of him. "I'm not trying to make this weird." Hesed, "I know you're married, I respect that, but I can't stop thinking about you." I should have stopped him. I should have reminded him I was his stepmother, that this was a line we couldn't cross, but I turned around, looked into his eyes, and saw a man who wanted me, not just my body, but me. I dried my hands, walked past him, his shoulder brushing his chest. Slow and deliberate, he didn't follow but hadn't need to. The message was clear. That night David texted that he'd be staying overnight for work. I poured a glass of wine, told myself I was just unwinding, but every creak of the house made my heart race. Ethan walked into the living room, fresh from a shower, in a gray t-shirt and sweatpants. He asked if I wanted company. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the silence between us alive with possibility. I offered him wine. He accepted, his fingers brushing mine, as I handed him the glass. That was all it took. "Are you happy?" he asked, his voice cutting through the quiet. I didn't answer right away. My chest tightened, the truth too heavy to speak. "I used to be," I said finally. "Sometimes I still am, but it's routine. I didn't feel seen." "I see you," he said, his eyes steady. "I notice everything, the way you bite your lip when you're thinking, the way you laugh, the way you look out the window like you're something." My breath caught. No one had ever seen me like that, not even David. Ethan leaned closer, his voice softer now. "I've tried to ignore it, Lauren. I've tried to do the right thing, but I want you, not just, I want to know you. I don't care how wrong it is." I set me glass down. He did the same when our lips met. It was slow, deliberate, like we'd been waiting forever. His hands found my waist, mine, his chest heartbeat racing under my palm. When he kissed my neck, I tilted my head back, letting the world fall away. His fingers slipped under my shirt, and I didn't stop him. I wanted him to know me, to feel what had been hiding. When it happened, it was deep, controlled, his eyes never leaving mine. He watched me, guided me, and for the first time in years I felt whole after we lay together. His hand on my stomach, room warm and heavy. I knew he changed everything. I knew there was no going back. But I didn't regret it, nothin', not when his fingers traced my skin, not when he kissed my shoulder and whispered my name like a prayer. The next morning, he was gone when I woke. The shit still warm beside me, relief and loss tangled in my chest. Downstairs, He was drinking coffee, his smile careful like he was afraid to break something. Fragile, we didn't talk about it. But Thier was different, charged with what widen his eyes followed me, his bodule ways half turned toward mine, waiting for a sign. That sign came 3 days later. We were in the living room, pretending to watch TV, when he asked if I was okay. I'm not sure, I said, and that wasno. He took my hand, pulled me closely, and this time, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, urgent like the days apart, hadn't sharpened the need. I let it happen, let myself be consumed. But the weight of it started to settle in this. Wasn't just physical anymore, it was something deeper, something I couldn't compartmentalize. Ethon started texting me when he wasn't home. Small things like how he missed his meal, or a song that reminded him of Yuzi should have stopped him, but I didn't. Started helping around the house, fixing things, cooking when I looked tired. It wasn't a game, he was showing up for me in ways David never had. Then Hesed, he didn't want to leave at the end of the summer, not for school, not for anything, because of me. I froze. You know how I am. I said, you know what this could destroy. I don't care. He said, I'd rather destroy what's fake than walk away from what's real. That night I cried alone, because he was right. My marriage was habit, not love. What I had with Ethan was alive, electric. But it was also wrong. The guilt crept in heavy and relentless. I couldn't look David in the eye. He noticed something was off. Asked if I was okay. I lied, said it was work. The heat, anything but the truth. He believed me, and I hated him for it. We get reckless. Stolen moments in the laundry room, the garage late at night, in the hallway. Every second alone was a chance we couldn't resist. Ethan started sleeping in my bed when David was away, not just to touch me but to hold me, toast about my dreams, my fears, my life. PF for this he listened, like it mattered on. When he kissed me, it felt like hement it, but summer was ending, Ethan's classes were starting. He asked what Ewanted really wanted. I couldn't answer Ewanted him, but I didn't know if I could burn my life down to have him. I'll wait, said, but his voice broke, and I knew he was impatient. One night, David came home early. Ethan and I were in the kitchen, not touching but close enough to raise questions. David froze, his ice-narrowing eye, smiled too quickly, said wooer, cleaning up. He didn't push, but the look he gave me said he saw something later. He asked if anything was going on, said no. And it was the last time. Elied without flinching. Ethan left 2 days later. We didn't say goodbye properly, just a hug that lingered, a look that said everything. I watched him drive away from the upstairs window, my hand clutch in the curtain. He still texts me sometimes. I answer, sometimes I don't. It's not over, not really. I don't know if I'll leave David. I don't know if I'll see Ethan again, but I know what I felt, and it was real messy, wrong but real, and that's the part I can't let